Welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be talking about the new Geographic Calculator cloud-based web application. My name is Scott Weber. I'm the product manager for Geographic Calculator, and I'm with Sam Knight, the vice president of product management.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon.
We'll turn the camera off in a moment just so that we get full screen for the slides, but just wanted to say hello. And I guess we can go ahead with the next slide. We're going to talk about the webinar format. We'll be in listen-only mode today. You can use the questions pane, and we encourage you to do so. And the session will be recorded and we'll have it available on our YouTube channel in a few days. A few housekeeping items before we get into the main part of the presentation. Here's some upcoming training. And we do have a LiDAR processing class in Global Mapper, which is in just a few days. The registration deadline is May 18th. So that's just Saturday, I believe. Then we have geospatial analysis in Global Mapper in mid-July, followed by terrain analysis in Global Mapper later in July, and then another LiDAR processing class July 30th through August 1st. So we encourage you to check those out. You can go to the website and basically see the same calendar and for more information on how to sign up for those classes.
Okay, we also have our annual academic scholarship that we'd like to remind folks of. We do offer a $1,000 scholarship and a Global Mapper Pro license. This is open to both undergrads and graduate students. You must be at an accredited institution. There are several options for how this is turned in. The submittals for this can be various. I would encourage you to check out the full details at our website. You can see the long link down at the bottom there. Look for the academic programs section on our website to get the full details of this scholarship program.
Okay, so getting back to Geographic Calculator, the cloud application, version 1.0 will be being released. We're targeting it for this fall, but we have the beta version of that coming out here in just a few weeks. And so we want to introduce that today, generate some interest in it, and we're going to have a poll question later where you can show whether you're interested in participating in that beta. We'll have more information on how to participate in beta after we demonstrate the application. So a few key features of the application. Unlike our desktop application, you can use this wherever you have an internet connection. It's not compatible with all mobile devices yet, but we'll be working on that over time. So you just have a URL, you can go there, log in, and you will have access to what normally would have been only available through our desktop application in the past. So we have features from both the Geographic Calculator desktop application and the GeoCalc Online Geodetic Registry, which has been around for a couple of years. And it had a point calculator and everything else you needed to do in desktop. Now in this new product, we have the point calculator doing individual point calculations. You can process spreadsheets of data in the point file job or tab, and then there's vector file processing available as well. The next thing that would come along down the road in a later version would be raster file processing as well. But right now, point file and vector. There's also a search tool. You can explore the data source, the same data source that's available in the desktop product and the GeoCalc Online product. You can search by name or by code or several other key things you can key on. You can search by location. You can filter by object type, coordinate systems, coordinate transformations, etc. And you can view and copy well-known text and GML code for a particular definition that you're interested in. You do need to be logged in to use both the calculators and the ability to view and copy the well-known text in GML. The data source is the full data source that is available in the desktop, and you can, that is cloud hosted in this version. So when you're doing cloud processing, it's right up there in the cloud already. And if you're doing any processing that occurs locally within your web browser, it downloads the definitions required for that process to your browser. File access is available both from local storage. You can upload files to the cloud to be processed, or if you can, well, for now it's only available in Azure, but eventually we want to generalize that to other cloud storage platforms. But if you're storing your data in the cloud, you'll be able to provide a link and move that data from your cloud storage into our cloud for the processing, and the output will be moved back to your cloud storage. Processing takes place on one of 3 virtual machine classes, and these are automatically selected based on the file size that you submit for processing. So now we're going to demonstrate a few of the features of this new application. So when you log into the website, and the actual website that will be provided for beta will be announced when we send out the beta email in a few weeks. But there's a welcome screen showing the 3 jobs, and then you can see at the top there's the home, search, calculator, help, and about tabs. So we're going to look at the search and the calculator tabs now, and I'm going to let Sam take it away. He's going to do the driving, but what we're going to do is we're going to start by searching for an EPSG code, and we're going to do 4326, which is the WGS 84 geodetic coordinate system. And that will bring up some results, and selecting the geodetic coordinate systems option, we can see that there's 1 result for WGS 84. And if we burrow down into that, it's going to show us all the details of the definition, identifiers, history, the point style, area of use, and usages, which is something in EPSG that contains a scope, which is basically what it's appropriate for using on, and then the area of use, which we separate out above, but that is what usages is all about. That's a fairly new item. And then the horizontal datum on which this coordinate system sits. And then again, within that, we again have identifiers, history, and other information like the ellipsoid, the prime meridian, and so on.
So one note here, Scott, I just want to call out for folks that may have been looking at the bottom of the screen. When we open that definition, it actually pops open a new tab in the browser. So we still have those search results open in another tab. This is somewhat akin to the way we navigate through different dialogues. It allows us to browse a number of different things at once and make those comparisons to get the full data that we're really after.
One thing while you're on the screen, Sam, over to the right, we have something called Actions, and this is where you would view the definition, let's say the well-known text. You need to be logged in as a valid user in order to use this function, and there is the well-known text, and there's a copy button, and then you can simply paste that into a text file for use wherever you might need it.
Yeah, and for folks that are familiar with our GeoCal online site that we've had up for a few years, a lot of these actions you're going to see in the search tools are really simply updates to some of those key features. You can think of it kind of like the next generation of the GeoCal online tools. So the search tools have all of those same types of exports. They have a little more powerful and streamlined searching to get through some of those. But the real meat of this application is where we're going to be getting into the additional calculation types.
Okay, and you can also search by location. You can specify a point on the map. There's a geolocate button to zoom you into where you are currently located. And then there's also the ability to enter coordinates of a bounding box within you want to search. We're not going to do one of those right now, but those are other ways that you can search. And you can see the object type filter section towards the bottom on the left there. And that's where you can zoom in on just the, not literally zoom in, but select the particular types of objects that you're interested in searching for. All right, want to move on to the calculation tools. So we'll start with a point calculation. If you're familiar with the desktop application, this is what's called the interactive conversion job, equivalent to that, where you enter a single point interactively, manually, and then do the processing on just that one point. And so we're going to do an example, and Sam, why don't you go ahead and, so we've got a point here in the state of Maine where we're located, and we're going to select a source coordinate system of N8027.
And just for folks that are following along here, there's a couple ways to do this, and you can see that I've simply clicked on the field, and the drop-down pops up of all of the various things that I've used recently. So we could come in here and simply select NAD27 from my recent list because it's one of the ones that I have used recently, or we can search that out, where that's going to bring up a fairly familiar looking dialog. So in this case, if I needed it the first time, I could drill down into North America. I could apply some filters in there and get down through the entire library of systems. I think I just...
You do need to hit enter on that search in the web app, unlike the desktop app where it searches instantly.
Yep.
But so yes, it's very similar to the desktop application and the point converter in the GeoCalc online tool. Many different ways that you can search down, and then a very handy recents list.
So on the right-hand side for our target coordinate system, I've just used my drop-down to get back to UTM zone 19 very quickly. It's one of the most common zones we use here in Maine. So because I've already searched it out and pulled that up once, it's very, very quick access to get back to again. Then down at the bottom, likewise, we have the ability to choose a transformation, and much like the desktop application, we simply click in this box, and this will narrow down the transformations that we have. You'll see a list up there with the accuracies for those, the various operation types for those particular transformations, and an info button if you want to open again, like we did with the search. If you want to open a new tab that has all of the transformation parameters for that specific transformation. Once you are happy with that, you can come right back to your main screen, and you'll see that one selected for you for processing. If there are, we're using a very simple example here, nice whole numbers. If you are using anything with any kind of complicated degree formatting, prefixes and suffixes, you'll see all the familiar formatting options that we have in the desktop application as well, right here for both input and output. So all there is left to do is come down here and click process, and you'll see our results come out on the right-hand side. Likewise, down at the bottom, you'll see this section here for processing status, what's going on. This list, we'll see a few things add on here as we step through some of the different functions, but it tells us that it was successful, everything was all done. This was one nice simple point, so it happens instantaneously. The work actually happens right here in the browser. In a few minutes here, we'll be taking a look at some file conversions where we have some options about where things are processed, and we might have some more pauses in between our file processing.
I do see that there are a couple of questions coming in already, and we will get to those as soon as we can a little bit later. We definitely are going to leave time for questions at the end. So thank you for those writing in.
We should probably also call out the blue banner at the bottom here. You'll see a kind of a pop-up banner that says that it had successfully updated the grid transform. And what that is doing is the transformation that we had selected here. For those of you from the US, you're probably familiar with the NADCON datum transformation. That is a grid-based transformation, so it uses a couple of supplemental files that it needs to make that transformation. In the case of the desktop application, those files are either included with the installation of the software itself, or the first time you use them, you simply download them automatically through the software. Likewise, here in the cloud version of the tools, we need to have access to those grid files. I mentioned that the work for this is actually being done right here in the browser on my local machine. So when I chose that grid file, what happened in the background when I was pulling up the information for the grid to see what the transformation was, in the background, it pulled that file down. We'll be taking a look at another transformation as we get into the files. But part of this is it actually downloaded that and then put up the status on the bottom of the panel that said successfully updated the grid transforms. There may be cases where there are transformations that are not possible to bring those transforms down, maybe because we don't have them. There are files that we're not allowed to distribute. There are things in the library where you may occasionally find that a particular grid is not directly available. And in those cases where there's something like a distribution, let's call it a distribution limitation or restriction. Scott and I this morning were just talking about a particular transformation where we found another one that was held proprietary by a particular nation. They want you to go get those grids directly from the authoritative source, their survey authority for whatever that place may be. You as the user would be able to go get those files and install them in your desktop version of the software and get access to some of those. So there are some times you'll see this where these statuses may say that it's simply not possible in the cloud tools due to whatever kind of usage rights there are on some of the supplemental files.
Along those lines, we do have a question about custom definitions. And I will say that at this point, with this beta release, custom definitions are not yet supported, but we already have that on our radar. And hopefully by version 1.0, we will have the capacity to store custom definitions within the web browser in temp space. And grid-based transformations that are custom, we'll be developing a method to store those grids locally or upload them possibly even to cloud storage. So it would depend on whether you're storing data in the cloud or locally. So some of those details need to be worked out still, but that's an excellent question.
Yeah, and it's probably also, we should probably remind this several times through here. This is a beta, or this is actually pre-beta. We have not yet released the beta for this. That will be coming shortly. But the tool that you are seeing here is under active development. This is not necessarily in its final form. It is pretty close to its final form, but we will definitely be adding things. And it is possible that you could see some things change, maybe slightly move around, and such. So there's our caveat for this.
We do welcome any suggestions that you may have. That's the whole purpose of this beta, is to have you try it out and not just look for bugs, but point out to us great ideas for new improvements. So please, when we get to the beta participation information, we'd love to have you join the beta test group and provide us with some great new ideas to improve the software.
Should we maybe take a look at some spreadsheets?
Yeah, let's move on to the spreadsheet. So this is the point file tab, which again, in the desktop software, it would be called the point database conversion.
So I'm just going to load up a simple CSV file here. We do support all of the the same types of tabular data that we support in the desktop application. So I've got a simple CSV here, and you'll see when we do load those files in, there's some options about whether they have header rows, whether if you're loading in a very large file, how many rows you want to preview in that file, some input and output options, such as reading in, say, a CSV file and writing out, say, an XLS file or an XLSX, as is our default here. Folks who have used our batch tools in the desktop version of the application will be familiar here with options about renaming the file name or simply adding suffixes to that to modify what your output file looks like. And the meat of this interface here is just like you'll see in the desktop application. So it's a tabular structure here, and we need to simply define where our coordinates are. So you'll do that with the drop downs at the top of the interface. So just like the desktop application, it is totally flexible. My data just simply by chance has longitude first and then latitude and then some extra data within there. But this can be in any order, and you simply use these drop downs at the top to specify where your input geodetic latitude and longitudes are, or if you have a projected coordinate system, it would say input northing and input easting and so on. You'll notice at the bottom, or midway down anyway, below the table, we have the same coordinate system selections that we had on the interactive job or the point job. Those are already set. So if you are working with a coordinate system in one place, it will simply carry over as you move to the different type of data. You can, of course, change this at any time. You can change the input and output systems, you can change the transformations, any of the necessary formatting and things such as that. What we're going to move over to here is we'll use this plus button. I'm going to add 2 columns up here on my output. And because I have a projected system selected for output, in my dropdown, you'll see instead of saying latitude and longitude, we say output easting and output northing. And again, there's no significance to the order. We can put those in any order we want.
Those columns can also be renamed, just like in the desktop software, by clicking the 3 little buttons. There are a few actions for removing and adding columns and renaming.
Yeah, I kept the default names there. You'll see C5 and C6. We can just as easily rename those columns for our output. Now again, if we wanted to change that transformation that we were working with down below, all we have to do is click on the transformation box, and this will bring us back to the same selector that we had before. All of the same access to the coordinate transformation information, or if you already know which one you need, such as I know I need this NADCON transformation here, that returns us right back, and we can do one of 2 operations here. Just like the desktop software, we can preview within the table, or we can go straight to process, and the only difference there is preview will simply update what we see on the table, and process will both update what we see in the table as well as generating my output file. So when I hit that process button, you'll see fairly quickly in our processing files list that it was doing a little bit of work on that. It very quickly went to success. You may have blinked past that. Tells us the output file that it has generated for us based on the output settings up there. And you'll see in our downloads, it has actually opened up a download. And let me just go quickly grab that file. And there is our output file. In this case, our output options were an XLSX sheet. So you'll see those new columns in their appropriate places.
The location of the output file in this case, or the download, I should say, is based on your browser settings. So if you have the defaults, it's going to go to the download folder, and you would go into your browser settings if you wanted to redirect those to a particular folder.
So mine, I just happened to have scoot over to my desktop, and so I just grabbed it off of our other screen here. Okay, so in the event that something has gone a little bit sideways, maybe you didn't get the coordinates you were after, just like the desktop, you can change your settings up here. You know, if we had accidentally done something like, you know, misaligned our input latitude and longitude, we could very quickly go and swap those back around using our drop downs and simply try that again. If you're working on a very large file, that's where the difference between preview and process comes in. Preview will just simply give you a quick view on screen, and process will actually run the entire thing and do the file in the background. So our file here only has about 20 records in it. If you were doing a file that had, you know, say 500,000 records in it, it's going to take just another brief pause before it actually does that work.
And at that point, we should, if you can scroll back to the top, you'll notice we have the header rows setting and a preview rows setting. And so in the case where you had many records, you can use that preview rows setting to limit the number of rows that it loads into this grid view, and that'll save you time. Then upon processing, it'll go out and grab the entire file and process the entire file. This is similar to the desktop software, has a similar setting, but it's laid out just a little bit different here. So that preview rows, as long as it's set, it defaults to 1,000, then anything less than 1,000, it's going to load the entire file. If you had 2,000 records, it's only going to load the first 1,000 records, but process will process them all. The header rows, you can have multiple headers, and it's going to assume that the column labels that it will use are in that last header row.
So while we're talking about file sizes and numbers of records, there's probably one number we ought to talk about here, and that's just exactly how much data we can load in here. What is our maximum right now, Scott?
Yeah, so the browser has a limitation on memory of about 2 gigabytes. And so we're finding that we can load spreadsheets of at least 100,000 records, but say 1 million records tends to max out the memory.
So that's going to depend a little bit on the machine and what else you have running. So we are trying to do the work here right in the Chrome browser. This is going to be a limitation that we have as we get into the beta period, but I think anybody that's worked with the Geographic Calculator for a while knows that 1 million records and such that's a lot of data.
Yes, it is.
Okay, let's see here. Let's hit a couple of the questions that we see in here.
While we're talking about the 1 million record point files, is down the road, there will also be the potential to have, when it detects more records than it can support in the browser memory, to then upload that file to the cloud and process it there. We're not there yet, but that's a way that we plan on dealing with very large files in the future.
Yep, and some of the questions that we see popping in here, one user is asking about coordinate systems for Mexico, and there's a few various questions. I'm not going to single out every country that's listed there because there's a few different folks have asked where it works. This has our full library. It is the same list of coordinate systems that you have access to in the Geographic Calculator desktop software. It is literally the same database. So if you can do it in the Geographic Calculator desktop application, you can do it right here in the cloud application. Another question, not about the coordinate systems, but about the overall functionality of what can we do in here right now. So what we're looking at on screen with the point file and the vector file job we'll move on to in just a moment. These are the current things that we support in the beta release of the Geographic Calculator. As we move towards a full release version of these tools, we do intend to be bringing in the raster functions as well as a viewer function. There's not presently support for raster transformations in here yet, nor do we have a viewer tool built into this. This is something that will be in development throughout the year. And hopefully after we get to a sort of initial release of this beta tool later on in the year, we're sort of talking about fall as when we might be ready to take this to a full release. We hope to have some of those more functions ironed out. Let's, since I see several questions popping in about LiDAR, so why don't we hop over to the vector tool here. And while we're doing this, I'm just gonna very quickly grab onto a shapefile for conversation and load that in. Oh,
you must have missed it.
I maybe missed a file. Let's try that again.
For security reasons, you need to select the entire grouping of files when you have a file like shape that has auxiliary files that go along with the core shape file. You need to select that entire group of files. Selecting just the shape and having it go grab the associated files is a security risk. So those have to be selected as a group.
You know, I think I just missed that, either the first one or the last one as I batch selected those. Now, as that comes in, you'll see that I am grabbing a file from my local storage. I just pulled that off of a folder on my desktop. And that file has a little over 1,000 features in that. That's a map of the towns here in Maine. It recognizes what format it is, obviously, and it defaults to that for output as well. Now, I mentioned earlier that the coordinate systems stayed the same. When I moved from the point job over to the point file job, it kept my input and output coordinate systems. But as I load the vector file here, something a little bit different happens. You'll notice that it reads the coordinate system from that file on its input. So it has changed my input coordinate system over here to UTM zone 19 for input, and we would then move on and change that to something else for output. I'm just gonna select WGS84 here, take it out to a nice simple lat long for conversation purposes. Likewise on the point file job and the point job, we need to select the transformation. And we have that same tool for making that transformation. So here we're just going to be going from NAT83 to WGS84. We select our transformation and we're ready to go off onto the process. Again, this is going to take our input file name and output and mash up the name for that output. As I process, you're going to see this happen very quickly there. It's going to very quickly go green almost instantaneously. And in my downloads list, you're going to see a zip file download. So this is a shape file. So you noticed as I loaded that in there, it was a whole collection of files. So instead of downloading a bunch of different files, it's going to zip those up before it gives those to you in one single package.
Sam, maybe you can show the drop-down list for output file extensions. There's a question about KMZ, and the application will support KMZ, KML files.
Yep, actually as well, looks like there's some questions in here about LAS and LAS, LAS and LAZ files as well. So LiDAR files are supported in here. You'll see in this drop-down list that I'm showing right now, you don't see those because my input file was a shape file and those aren't compatible, but it will support LiDAR files. Let's see. Oh, and there's another question in here about batching.
Yes.
So right now we're doing single operations. It basically can queue these up as we go. But it does not have a true batch tool quite yet. That is something that would be on the horizon for the application as we move into the beta and through the beta. Let's see. Oh, I think you already answered the KMZ question.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. But yep, there's our list of output formats. And just for conversation here, what I'm going to do is select a different format here. So I'm going to say, let's convert this over to a mapinfo tab file from our shape file. And we're going to see something a little bit different happen now. So I'm not going to touch any of the coordinate systems, but I'm going to hit process. And if you notice, under the processing files list, that finally gave us something to look at. So the difference here is up until now, the operations that we've shown have been happening right here within the browser on the machine that Scott and I are using. And you see this one sit a little bit longer before finally going to the download and then indicating its success. What just happened, because we're crossing up these formats, is the tools to handle the file formats are a little bit more rugged than we can work with directly in the browser. So this is an example of where the data is a little too hard for us to work with within the confines of your browser. And so that gets sent up to the cloud server that is hosting the whole thing. And that work takes place on the cloud server. Once that is done, and most of the time there is just doing a quick upload and the download. But once that hits the cloud server, it does all the work up on the server side, and then again zips it up and brings it back down to your local machine. So in that sense, this will seamlessly move back and forth between using your browser to do the work on your local machine and moving it up server side when it needs to. Some of those functions that folks might be particularly interested in about really heavy batches of large data and things like that, those are the kinds of things that are going to move up towards the server as we get a little farther into the beta.
Most of the formats in the vector file tab will occur in process in the cloud. The one exception to that is shape to shape. And we just started off with a simple one of those to exhibit the functionality of it. But as you can see, shape to tab would go up to the cloud. Tab to tab would go up to the cloud, and any other combination of vector formats would be processed in the cloud. So an upload process, then a cloud process to actually do the calculations, and then a download process has to occur to complete the whole round trip of the job.
Okay, let's. There's a question here about an API. Well, let's take this one right now.
Okay.
So there's a question about whether or not there's any plans for an API for this tool, and the sort of secret answer to this is yes, we already have one. This is actually built on our own collection of SDKs for GeoCalc. We have a few different types of SDKs and APIs that might be relevant depending on what you're looking to do. But if you are interested in a web API for this type of operation, we actually already have customers with sort of bespoke installations of tools that they use in their own private cloud environments. And very often they tend to be very specialized implementations around particular formats or around particular coordinate systems. So if you are interested in learning more about like SDK or API type access to tools like this, definitely reach out to the beta and reach out to our sales team, and we can get you all the information you need about how to license APIs and such.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to some discussion of how to participate in the beta.
Down there.
And while we're getting the slideshow back up, if your question does not get answered today, I will get back to you via email after the webinar. So we'll try and cover all the questions, but
there we go. I don't know what the slideshow was doing there for a second.
So everyone will be responded to either live here today or via email after the fact. Okay, so to participate in the beta, first of all, for now, you must be a licensed Geographic Calculator user, where this is keying off of the Geographic Calculator license. And go ahead on to the next slide. So everyone that's currently a calculator user will receive email. So be looking out for something from beta@bluemarblegeo.com. I'll be sending emails from that address when we're ready to release the beta with all the necessary information, such as the actual release date, what the URL is for the application, how to get started, and we're going to offer some prizes for those beta testers with the best participation.
And I don't think we're letting the cat too far out of the bag if we talk about some of the dates of when we expect this to come out. So the release date for the beta itself, we expect this within the next several weeks. We are reaching a point where the beta release is imminent. So this will be taking place pretty soon. We expect the beta to be carrying through most of this year, and we're sort of, for now, tentatively eyeballing a full release towards later on in the fall this year.
Ideally, it may be released along with an update to the desktop software around the same time. So once you get your beta information via email, you, being a licensed calculator user, you would sign in with your Blue Marble Geographics account email address, and then you can use the application. If you're not a Geographic Calculator licensed user, you will be able to see the search, and you will just see the pages, but won't be able to do any calculations, for instance. Now, as far as the limitations on usage during the beta, the point and point file usage is unlimited. Those are the processes taking place on your browser. But the vector file usage that occurs on the cloud is going to be limited. And we're thinking that your initial limitation would process, just for instance, about 90 25 megabyte files. So quite a few processes can be performed with the basic initial limit. Now, if you exceed that limit during the beta period, we would just want you to contact us, and we'll look at getting you some more time.
And the note on that is that's going to vary. There's not a counter on these that is going to count up to 90 files. It depends purely on the data that's been pumped through, how heavy it is. There are a number of factors. It's still early days on this tool, and our beta process is we want to see how people are going to use it. So we really invite people's feedback on this. We really want folks to use it and try it out and see where you hit the limits, if you do hit the limits, things like that. We're really looking for an open communication here on this beta process.
And there was a question earlier about pricing of the product, and a lot of that is going to depend on exactly what Sam was just talking about. We need to see how the product gets used. Where is the usage? Is vector very popular? Are files tending to be very small, which means that the upload and download is small, and therefore the associated costs are small? Or are people processing very large vector files? So we're at too early of a stage to really address exact pricing, but this beta period is going to really help us hone in on based on how it's actually used, what the pricing structure would end up looking like. So we have a participation poll. Sam's going to pop that up. And we would just want to know, are you interested? Do you think you'd be interested in participating in this beta testing period? And so, is the poll up?
Yeah, it's running.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. So if you respond yes to this poll, we will gather that information and we will include you in those beta emails that I was talking about a moment ago.
And why don't we just leave that active here, and maybe we can take some of these questions
Okay.
that have come up. Let's see here. There's one question just to reiterate. So will the cloud-based version support everything that the desktop version does? There are a couple of answers to that question. And right now, the answer is no, it does not support everything that the desktop does. Right now, the desktop is still the main workhorse, and it has basically more robust handling of the formats that we have, but it is tied to a desktop installation. This is presently a slightly lighter weight tool for the things that it does, and it does not support yet all of the main functional areas. And probably the biggest thing that folks would notice right off the bat would be raster transformation. That is not yet a piece of the cloud tools. But it does currently support all of the same types of calculations and transformations on the same database. So there's a couple of questions that folks have asked about specific coordinate systems. If you are using a coordinate system that is found either in the Geographic Calculator desktop application or the Global Mapper desktop application in either of those libraries, or if you are one of our users that uses both together, so you have GeoCalc mode enabled in Global Mapper, basically every transformation found in either of those places is supported in the GeoCalc library. And that is the same library that's available under the Geographic Calculator desktop application. It's the same library that has been available for search and browsing in GeoCalc online tools, and it is the same library that is available here in Geographic Calculator in the cloud version of this tool that we're moving towards. I see a couple questions that I think we're going to follow up with after the fact about specific transformations. There's one in particular about a UTM zone with NAD 27 in the Caribbean. I would encourage you to reach out to our support team for that specific combination, and we can talk about the parameters that you're after. But on the face of your question, I'm going to say yes, you can probably do that here in the online tool. You can definitely do it in the desktop version of the application, and I'm quite certain you can probably also do it here in the cloud tools. And let's maybe also take this one now down at the bottom. So folks that currently have a number of seats of the desktop application, what does that mean for your usage of the cloud service? If you are currently a Calculator desktop version user, you will have access to the online tools in this beta process. We are still working out exactly some of the background of in software. It's called entitlements and claims and things like that, of what user login has access to what pieces of software. But yes, if you are a single user, if you're a one-person shop using the calculator, you're going to have access to the cloud in the beta tools, and also as we get farther along looking at a full release. Folks that have multiple users, same deal. There will be sort of a process for figuring out who is a calculator users. Some folks in network license environments are not necessarily in our online customer database, so we don't know who all the end users are. There will be a process to link those up and just make sure that you are actually associated with a group of licenses as we move down closer to figuring out what the costs and license levels and things like that will be at. Okay, and one last question here. About when the new 2022 datums will be available. So here in the United States, we have gotten this question at every webinar we've done for Geographic Calculator for the last 5 years, I think. The 2022 datums will be available as soon as we possibly can get them into the application following their official release by the NGS. The sort of current scheduling for that is they are anticipated to be released towards the end of 2025. And we have been working to prepare to support those systems literally for years here. So we have our eyes on those tools. We're working with all the betas as they are released from the NGS on their Alpha Tools site. And we will have those as soon as we can possibly get them into our tools here.
It might be worth saying too that all of the 2022 NSRS modernization products, the release is a rollout. So there will be beta products, and then they have to be officially signed off on before they come the official product that we would include in our Geographic Calculator products. And the start of that is with GEOID 2022. Sometime this summer is the plan from what we're hearing. And then throughout 2025, different parts of the modernization, because we've got the new state plane coordinate systems, the new reference frames, and so on. So it's not like one day where they all come out together. It's a rolling process.
Okay, so I've closed up the poll. Thanks for everybody that has indicated yes or no in there. We will be following up with all the folks who have said they are interested in signing up with the beta. And again, we will also be emailing out to our full calculator user list as we approach the beta release.
All right, so back to the general structure of pricing, but not so much pricing, but the structure of the availability of this product. Again, it's available to Calculator desktop licensed users for now. There will be a free tier, which is a limited number of credits that will be included with that desktop license. Now, if you're a heavier user of the product, there will be add-on tier plans. So you can purchase an additional bucket of credits with it, and these would be, for now, we're looking at annual plans, but I think in the next bullet, we'll talk about monthly a little bit. But so the annual plans are something that we can more or less do right now. The monthly purchasing options are something that we're working on, but multiple tiers for different amounts of usage. And then sort of back to the question about there was a question about, oh, I have 10 seats of desktop calculator. There will be different amounts of seats that you can, if you have desktop seats, then you would have seats on the cloud product. And we're going to work on setting up sharing those credits among team members. So we have a team concept and credits. Ideally, we want to be able to share credits among team members. And then if you bump into the limitation of your credits, you've used up your monthly allotment, there will be a way to bolster that plan with additional credits. But again, we're working that all out right now during this beta period.
Yep. This is us sort of gazing into the crystal ball here for this as a full release product. But just to reiterate on the beta process itself, there are not going to be any of these it's not free tier versus paid tier in the beta. It doesn't matter what you have for how many seats. Everybody is going to be their own individual user, if you will, in the beta process with their own limitations. And so we're trying to figure out where those limitations are going to be for folks, how heavy folks are going to hit this service with data, and we need to quantify some of those things to work out how this is all going to sort of shake out in the end. So forgive us if some of these are a little, if they're a little fuzzy, if they're a little vague. This is a very different type of release for us.
Okay, and just to quickly summarize, why would you use this product? You can use it from any computer, wherever you have an internet connection, unlike having to install on the desktop and then license that one product on each different machine that you might have, if you bought 3 licenses, you would have to install it on 3 different computers. Here, you would just go to a URL and sign in with your user ID, maybe give an order number, and you're off and running.
Let's maybe talk about that URL again for a second. So I'm sure some folks were probably scribbling down the URL at the top of our browser.
Yes.
But that's going to change. That is simply our sort of initial address for testing purposes. That is not for just the general folks to go hit. As we take this to beta, there will be a different specific domain. It will probably be a lot simpler as well. And then, so we've said this a couple of different ways, and I just want to kind of make sure folks sort of follow along with us. So here we're saying we can use it from any computer wherever we have an internet connection, but this is a browser-based tool. So can I use this on my Android?
Well, it works on my particular Android phone very well, but it depends on which operating system your device is using, whether that be Apple or Android. And so we have to scope out which operating system versions will be supported in both of those environments, Android and Apple. And that is just something that is still being worked on. Someday down the road, there might be a mobile specific application, but we are not there yet.
Okay, and you already answered the second. I was going to hit you with, can I use it on my iPhone? And those are sort of in the same boat. So both Android and iPhone. If you're interested in trying it on a mobile application or on a mobile operating system, please try it. We would love to have you in the beta. We'd like to have you trying to do what you want to do in here from those platforms. We periodically hear from folks that they want a mobile tool that they can use on a phone or a tablet out in the field. And here we're also saying any computer. So for years, folks have known us as a Windows only shop. So we can we get into this from Apple computers?
Yes, we test on Safari, Chrome, Firefox, and a few other browsers. So it's about your browser for the most part, whether this application will work. So if you've got one of the standard browser, I can't vouch for some of the browsers that are out there, but we take the most common ones and we do testing on all of them from Apple computers and Windows computers. So
okay, so the point here is, if you have a device that you wish you could do coordinate transformation on, give it a try. Sign up for the beta. Let us know that you're trying some device, then you're either having great success or you're wishing that we were a little more compatible with something in particular, and we can take a look at
that. Okay, and just a reminder that currently we offer 3 types of calculations: the point file, and the vector. So that's a subset of what the desktop offers. We do have the complete geodetic data source available on the cloud, and file access is available either locally or currently from Azure Cloud. So if you happen to have an Azure account and are storing data on the Azure Cloud, you can put in what's called a SAS key, and the application can go grab the data right from your cloud storage.
Okay, and just to come back around one more time on the other clouds. So if you're a Google Cloud user or an AWS Cloud user, those should hopefully be coming during the beta process, but we are going to park on top of Azure for the earliest support.
Okay, again, you must be a licensed Geographic Calculator user. I think we've covered that again and again. And all those users and anybody who has responded yes to our poll I will put you on this beta email list. And again, with things like release date, the link, and information about participation for helping out with the testing. And finally, the session was recorded today and will be available on the YouTube channel in a few days, as I had said at the very beginning. And I think that covers everything. So now we can kind of focus on questions, those that we haven't already covered. Feel free to use your questions pane.
Okay, I'm just scrolling back through here to make sure we didn't miss any of the early ones. Okay, here's a good one. Users asking, is the cloud version going to replace the desktop version? That is way far out for us to even think about. We know that we are quite a while away from retiring the desktop software. This is our first step into cloud software as an actual data conversion tool. We've been doing web repositories for our database for a while, years and years now, but this is our first sort of step into a purpose-built web tool. So whether or not we would eventually replace the desktop version, it's way too early days for us to say anything conclusive about that. So I'll probably just sum that up for now by saying probably not anytime soon. That kind of a conversation is way too early here. We haven't even gotten this one out yet.
Yeah, sunsetting the desktop product is very far out, if at all. We just don't know.
Yeah, folks have been asking for cloud tools or mobile support for basic conversions and things like that for a long time. This is a natural first step for us to move up to working in the cloud. But this actually kind of dovetails a little bit into this other question down here of, do we have this available as a web service? And there's sort of there's a short answer and there's a long answer to that. The short answer is yes, this is available as a web service. The long answer is it is not a web service that you can hit on your own to our public site. We do have web service available for this as a custom service you stand up within your own cloud. It is built on several of our SDK components, mainly coming from GeoCalc, and we have pieces of that called GeoCalc Web API. And that allows you to get access to the database and the transformation tools. And again, depending on which of the pieces of this you need for a web service, there are various options there. So if you're interested in utilizing this as a web service for any custom project that you want to do, definitely let us know, and we can give you some more information about the requirements, what type of systems that can be set up in. We've stood this up in a number of environments now. And we do have customers very happily using this for a while out in the world.
Sam, I do see that we've used our hour. So unless there's another pressing question that would be quick to answer, we should probably wrap this up. And we thank all of you for attending today. And if you're interested in our webinar series, I'll give you the website here.
This is where you can go to get access to our webinar in a few days once this is processed and uploaded to YouTube. Just before we sign off here, I see a couple of clarifications coming in. We'll definitely make sure to get somebody in contact with you about using this as a web API for use in your GIS system. I think there's definitely some conversation we can have there. So we'll follow up with you offline about that last question we took. And I think that's all the questions we have for now, so might as well sign
Okay.
off.
Well, thank you again for attending. Have a great rest of your day.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Sam.
Thank you.